message is transmitted.
Okay. So I'm having one hell of a Mercury retrograde already. How about you?
Actually, I kind of feel like Mercury retrogrades, I kind of usually kind of skate through them a little bit. And I feel like it's because I was born during a Mercury retrograde.
That is typical. Yeah, that if you were born during a retrograde, then then the retrograde energy is sort of just already a part of you. And so it's not a shock to your system.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like once in a blue moon, I'll have something that's a typical Mercury retrograde kind of situation. But usually, I mean, I feel like I get away pretty scot-free by most of them. I always hear my friends complaining about them.
Do you know your big three astrology signs?
Oh yeah,
Sun,
yeah.
Moon,
I'm Aquarius, Taurus.
Aquarius Sun.
Yeah, Aquarius Sun and Moon, and Taurus rising.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm a Leo Sun and Moon with Scorpio rising.
Oh wow, crazy.
And okay, so here's what I find. And this is just based on my own observation. I didn't read this anywhere, and I could be totally wrong. But it seems to me that people who have a conjunction, the exact same sign for Sun and Moon, your higher mind and your subconscious mind are more in alignment because they're the same sign. And so I find, and I've found this a lot with people who are practicing any kind of magic, a lot of them have Sun and Moon signs that are conjunct or the exact same sign.
Yeah, I haven't noticed that, but I'm gonna keep my eyes on that from now on.
Yeah, astrology's. I mean, I'm no expert astrologer, right? But it's fascinating because there's just no end to the depth of which you can figure things out about people. With these
I've been trying to study the medical aspects as much as I can of it, and I've got a little book that I don't know, around here somewhere, that's all about medical astrology, and it's pretty interesting. But I feel like I don't know enough about just astrology in general to lock all of that quite in yet. So I've been just studying. Actually, astrology is what I've been studying real hard for the last couple of weeks. I just felt that I needed to shift over to that. So I just really started studying that pretty hard. Before that, I mean, I'm studying it in trying to study it in line with everything else.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot to be. If you're interested in esotericism or metaphysics, like you're never gonna get there. You're never gonna say, okay, I've learned it all now, and I know. Yeah, right. Even if you're a master occultist, right? You know, like 1/10 of what there is to know.
Mm-hmm.
Max, and that's only in our dimension from our perspective.
Yeah, I super agree with that. I feel like part of getting to the point where you feel like you know stuff is figuring out how much you don't really know. Like unlocking all those doors and going, oh shit, I don't know anything about this thing, and I don't know anything about this thing, and then there's so much more to the things that I thought I knew,
Yeah, so as Thoth says in the Emerald Tablets, I think I'm gonna screw this up trying to repeat it verbatim, but it's basically he's saying every step lengthens the goal. The more you learn, the more you realize that, wow, I don't know shit. Now, I've personally loved that. I don't think everybody loves it like I do. Like I have this philosophy that, being wrong is just the greatest thing ever, because then you find out that you're wrong instead of assuming that you're right. And you find out that there's a lot more to learn. So every time you're wrong, it's just this tremendous opportunity to gain, to further yourself on the path to learning what's right.
Yeah,
that's really frustrating for some people. For me, it's very exciting. And I just, I keep climbing up the mountain, and I always want to see what's over the top, but you're never really going to get there.
Yeah, failure is definitely a lesson learned if you look at it correctly, and it's part of the path towards getting things, honed in.
Yeah, definitely.
It's always a test, researching and testing and starting over again sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's just roll right into it. I'll give you a proper introduction. Mike from Ritual Fitcraft. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah. I've been following your page for a long time. Kind of always thought like, oh, I'll hit that guy up for a podcast episode whenever I start my podcast. That's a couple of years ago now that I've been working up to doing this.
Yeah, I've been following you for a long time too, and I really just kind of like I mean, I told you this already. I really like your focus on magic as a mental health tool and as a way to like improve our mental health and to get to know ourselves and to really explore. I think that's super. I mean, for what I do, that's part of the game. Like you can't make a physical change to your temple if you're not willing to open all the closets and sweep them out, you know, and look around to find out all the things that are in disrepair that need to be fixed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think magic is a real good way to find those those you know, dark corners.
Well, it's you know, the magic is one of the things that it is the ancient approach to psychology.
Mm-hmm.
We think of psychology as being a modern invention, and that's nonsense. You know, the modern approach to psychology is basically studying the brain and telling you about yourself, which I find to be almost completely useless. Whereas magic and esotericism is experiential psychology. You're going to experience yourself, and that is useful.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. You know, so as I've pointed out, I think in every podcast episode so far, I really love Aleister Crowley's take on what demons and angels are, and they are archetypes of your subconscious. They're a part of you. They are portions of your own psyche that are buried so far down and so deep in the subconscious part of your mind, which is the quantum part of your mind. That's why they're so powerful. They're not, you know, as above, so below, and as within, so without. They could be thought of as external entities, but they're also internal. And when you learn to meditate and to go within yourself and sort of have confrontational experiences with your own demons and your own angels, you really start to experientially learn about yourself and the world at large.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that learning tarot, learning, you know, esoteric arts, tarot especially, I mean, you're familiarizing yourself with archetypes, you're familiarizing yourself with these different facets. You know, back in the day, we called them gods, but these different facets of universal consciousness and thus our own consciousness. And just figuring out that there's a lot more of them than you thought there were, you know.
Yes.
And really kind of associating those with our own patterns and yeah, I mean, you know, your tarot is just telling yourself a story with these cards that say, here's this archetype, like it's a flashcard for your brain. You know, I think.
Yeah, and all the archetypes are contained within the tarot as well as astrology, and tarot is really incredible because it is a synthesis of all these different esoteric practices put into this, you know, nice little deck of cards with this magical sort of property to it, you know. And magic is such a bastardized word. You know, because when you're my explanation, right, I'm a shamanic tarot reader, so when I read, I'm allowing my spirit guides to have a conversation with the spirit guides of my client and allowing that conversation to come through the cards, right? But when you're shuffling, there's just this moment where you know to stop. It's not that you're choosing. If you're, in my opinion, if you're reading tarot the way that I read tarot, and I think the way a lot of people do, you don't decide when to stop. You just know. You know when to stop. You know when to cut the deck, and miraculously, magically, the correct answers come out every time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel like I just know the things to look for that are going to be signs. And sometimes that thing that I'm looking for while I'm shuffling the deck is like a voice in my head that says, stop, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a card, no matter how I shuffle, that card is still sticking out and it just starts to bug me. And I'm like, oh, that's probably the card, you know, like, yeah, I feel like, it is tapping into your own intuition and feeling instead of thinking about the cards that are in your hand and that you're laying out. And in addition to like that intuition, I think the Golden Dawn, I guess, used to invoke HRU, in their tarot readings, and maybe that's just the part of yourself that's more aligned to the cards, or I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like there's always I always feel like I have an intuitive voice in the first place, and sometimes that voice just tells me go take a walk and do it right now, and sometimes that voice tells me other things, but I feel that the more that I put it towards the tarot, the more clear my readings get, especially.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely learning to listen to your higher mind is crucial, I think, for living. But especially if you're interested in this field, it's something that's going to happen when you start to meditate. You're going to start to discern the different voices in your mind. I was trying to explain spirit guides to a friend one day, and I said, well, do you ever talk to yourself? And she said, yeah. I'm like, well, who do you think you're talking to? These are the different voices in your head, and there are many of them, and they're not all in agreement with each other. And then there's also mind, body, spirit, right? Your body wants things that your mind doesn't necessarily want, and things that your spirit might hate. And that goes for all three. It's about getting the three into alignment with each other is when we really start to experience real health. And then that's what your focus is, and why I was interested in talking to you. So you focus on the body aspect of it. I'm very focused on the mind and spirit aspect of it. I recently started working out again and went on a keto diet, and I'm focusing more on my physical health now.
Nice.
Because I realize that the three are inseparable from each other. You can't have optimal spiritual or mental health if you're ignoring your body. No way. Yeah. And the same goes any way you mix those three up.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like I feel like in the witchcraft community, there's a lot of just in Western society in general, I think a lot of us are just trying to get out of our bodies and get away from our bodies, we get so focused on magic practice, or maybe not even practice. Some people just whatever they I don't know. I don't understand everyone's practices, but we get so focused on the daily stuff that we don't think about the fact that our body is like our vessel, and it carries us around, and sometimes it determines how your energy feels. Even if you've got a real kickin' divine connection and you're pulling in all of that great white light from above, it's still going to affect how your body feels and how much energy you have to put into your shit, and how you're sleeping, and how your just everything processes, your emotional processes, your physical processes, being able to take yourself down a notch when you get really riled up. It's all super interconnected. And honestly, I feel like it starts with breathing. Breathing is that real intrinsic component. If we're not focusing on our breath, our hearts can race. We can get really wound up and tight and breathe high and heavy, and like when you start doing that, like you can feel your heart really start pounding. And
and if you're a person who lives with anxiety and you haven't done any breath work or learned about breath work, man, you can turn that around so fast just by learning to breathe correctly.
Totally. And I personally deal with anxiety and with depression, and I've got a long laundry list of mental health ailments that I could tell you about that I've been diagnosed with over the last 20 plus years.
Yep,
30
same here. I've been through all of them. I've been through all the psychotherapy and the counseling and the medications and the this and that. At one point in my early 20s, I was taking like 7 different pills every day. Nice. I had a sleep aid, I had an antidepressant, I had 2 different antidepressants, a mood stabilizer and all this stuff. And I still just felt like absolute shit all the time. None of it was doing anything, but I was dependent on all of it. Mm-hmm. And it was bad time. I didn't feel like I was getting any help. I just felt like, well, maybe if I add another pill to this pile of pills I take every day, somehow magically that will sort me out. And that's the outside in sort of modern take on psychology that, in my opinion, is not very helpful to a lot of people. you know, and I'm talking about people who have the everyday mental health issues, ADHD, depression, anxiety. I'm not talking about people who have schizophrenia, but I do think that on a whole, society is overly medicated.
Yeah, agreed.
And not, you know, not doing better because of it.
Well, I feel like part of the issue is the way that we, and I'm not a doctor, you know, and I'm a personal trainer, you know, that's my qualifications. But I feel, but I have a long history with psychiatry and medications and whatever else. And I have had a lot of therapy, and I feel like therapy actually puts you ahead of the game for magic. Like being able to peel yourself apart and get into the layers and really understand all of the scary shit that's in there and look at it and go, oh, I guess I'm going to fix that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I feel like the way that we medicate around here in this country, at least, I don't know about anywhere else. The way that we medicate is we just throw a bunch of pills at the issue, and then we give you pills to cover up the side effects of the other pills, and we don't actually deal with like the shit that's underneath all of that, like the lifestyle problems. And you know, maybe you're depressed because you're surrounded by people who are fucking assholes, and you know, the you know, McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you know, all of these kind of things that we do to ourselves that really put our bodies in a state where they couldn't help but be depressed. You know, we're not our nutrition's really kind of spotty. Even the best nutrition plans, you know, in the United States, like our vegetables aren't as nutritious as they used to be. Like there's just all kinds of things that really make it hard to take good care of your body and your brain. And I think a lot of mental health issues really stem from the body, you know, from sickness, from like, I mean, we know, we've seen all kinds of scientific information that says your gut microbiome is really responsible for your mood and your you know, depression and chemical balance and all kinds of stuff like that. And mental health is not like a chemical imbalance so much as it is just a state of overall health, I think. And you know, if you have all kinds of issues with your gut because you're eating food that's just not really designed for human consumption, or you know, or it's got shit in it that's tearing a hole in your gut, you know, it's getting past your blood-brain barrier, and or you know, you've got untreated diabetes, and you know, that affects your ability to think straight. I mean, it really, there's all kinds of things that we do to ourselves that affect our ability to think straight, and the way that we think affects everything else. I mean, it radiates out, as above, so below. It radiates into everything. It radiates into your body. It radiates into your work. It radiates into your relationships with other people. Like we have to master the mental part, and part of that mental part is realizing that there's a physical part that, you know, that affects the mental part too. And taking care of that physical part is hugely important. And I'm not just completely focused on the physical. Like I really talk about meditation and spirituality, and you know, like working light through your body, working energy, like difficult energy through your body. What a great way to take care of shadow work, man. Like I get a client a kettlebell, and I get them swinging a kettlebell so that they are safe and they've got a really, really good form, and everything on the physical plane is like exactly where it should be. And then I'm like, okay, now think about something that like really pissed you off. You know, think about something, maybe somebody pulled in front of you in traffic today and it pissed you off, and that's all you got. But like really get that and turn it over in your mind, focus on it, and use all of the energy. Like anger is an energy, to quote Public Image Limited, right? PIL. Anger is an energy, so extract all the anger out of that. You know, maybe your neighbor punched you, or your boss is an asshole, or there's all kinds of things that happen to us on a daily basis that we turn that anger into ourselves, and like it creates disease, and it creates depression, and it creates anxiety. And we could take all of that energy, and instead of like internalizing it and using it for destruction, our own destruction, right? Our own hell, we can take all that energy and put it out through your body as you exercise. You know, like put it into a kettlebell, like shoot the energy out of your body into the kettlebell if you have to. And it's an earth element, it's ground, right? And there's all kinds of really, really good ways that we can harness the energy that we currently like piss away on anger, and you know, all kinds of things that we don't need. Sorry,
Yeah,
that was a
and
bit of a tirade, man.
no, it's fine. It's great. I always think about the time that we spend being angry or being upset, and it's like, what could your brain be doing with that time if you weren't spending it just
Mhm.
sitting there thinking about what sucks or why you're mad or this person did this. No, go for me, I would say go chop some firewood. But the same idea, exactly what you're saying. Go get that energy out of you in a way that's constructive and doing something good for you. That's the essence of alchemy,
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
changing
I
your
can
inner
see what I'm
state.
doing alchemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a physical alchemy. I'm not turning lead into gold, but it's spiritual alchemy, which is what alchemy really is,
What
right?
alchemy really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's turning yourself from lead into gold. That's the whole idea, right? Because we all have these different potentials in us. Every single person, every single human being has immense potential for good, for evil, for selflessness, for selfishness. It's all in all of us, right? And it's about the choices that we make and the ways we choose to change ourselves to affect the outer world. That's how I see it. That's the magical point of view. But the point of view that kind of society is stuck in is, well, I'll change the outer world to make myself happy.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just like, I mean, that's just like if you hang out in lots of online witchcraft groups, you'll see people, hey, what's a spell that I can do for depression? Like,
Yeah.
well, sure you can do a spell for depression, but you've like in any spell work that we do, we have to do the footwork as well. Like there's always an earthly component to our spell work that requires effort on our part. I feel like, I mean, you always have to put the balls in motion, and that any kind of spell work, sigil work, or whatever else. I mean, you're not gonna be able to be successful if you're not doing things to help to improve the potential. The potential of the thing that you want to happen. It's
Yeah.
all a numbers game, right?
Yeah. And the way that I would, and the way that I do, and I try not to get into a lot of like arguments on Facebook in these witchcraft groups, because a lot of time, come on, a lot of it's, I won't say anything. But to me, what I always want to say is, look, magic is the art of making internal changes through external means. When you're casting a spell, when you're creating a sigil, when you're reading tarot, all of it is designed to create internal changes that align you with the frequency of what it is, the desired effect in the exterior world. But if you just do the spell and then you go like watch TV or play video games and eat a bunch of junk food and just sit and think about how miserable you are, then nothing's going to come of that spell. When you do magic, you have to be aware of and open to and sensitive to the subtle changes inside you that come as a result of your magic, because that's what's going to take you to your desired goal, right? And so in my opinion, what magic does, like I said, it aligns you with the frequency of what it is you want to achieve, but it's up to you then to follow with this, you follow your synchronicities and follow those internal changes to that goal, right? It takes effort on your part, and you're really not changing the outer world when you use magic. You're changing your inner world, which then changes your outer world. But you have to notice that internal change first. You have to act on it.
Yeah, I kind of when I'm doing magic to increase the probability of something, I kind of try to think about the universe at the quantum level, and I'm looking at a movie and everything is the way that a fly sees it. So I've just got all of these tiny little screens, and every screen has like the next second of possibility in every direction. And really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the screen that has the story that takes me in the direction that I want to go.
Yeah.
And I'm just moving through as I move through time. I'm moving through those individual frames in the movie.
Yes.
And
That's almost identical to how I visualize it. It's just frame by frame of reality, and you're moving your consciousness through the frames, and there's linear frames in every direction, but you don't have to move in a linear fashion. Well, you kind of do. I don't believe anyone can travel backwards in time. Maybe some yogi sitting somewhere on a mountain can, but we get to choose our future, and you can visualize it as these different sort of timelines that are laid out ahead of you, and which one are you going to move towards?
Yeah.
different potentials, different probabilities, just like you're saying.
Well, I feel like even if you're using magic to do something impossible or improbable, moving through time, that doesn't necessarily mean that your brain is not going to give you a badass time travel trip in your sleep, and for some people, and unfortunately I'm not one of these people, but for some people their dream world is almost the same as their waking realities.
Oh my God, I wish I had that.
I wish I had that too, man, but fuck, I really don't. Pardon my French. I don't know if I can even drop bombs on your show, but
we'll find out. If YouTube takes me down, then we'll learn that way.
Cool. It's a good problem to have when people are mad about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't have that, and I suspect that one of the reasons I don't, actually I know, it's because I ingest quite a lot of marijuana on a daily basis.
Same problem.
Yeah, and it will definitely mess with your dream recall. I mean, I answer that question all the time in Facebook groups. Well, what can I do to remember my dreams? Stop smoking pot.
Yeah.
And then they're like, nah. That's pretty much how I feel about it as well. But I recently started keeping a dream journal, and that's definitely helping, because you have vivid dreams every night. It's just a matter of whether or not you remember them.
Yeah.
Everybody has vivid dreams. It's just that for a lot of us, the instant you start to wake up, they're gone.
Yeah. And basically, I mean, that's the majority of what it is for me too. It's like I never dreamt. Like I wake up and they're just gone. Or sometimes I'll get like a little hint of, oh, I think I had a dream about something last night. Now, I remember this color, or I remember like, being outside on a deck of some house, or like I'll get little tiny snippets. But I've noticed that if I take a tolerance break, my dreams definitely do start to come back. And man, actually, I've been smoking pot pretty consistently since March, because right before that I was on a tolerance break, and I had been like real great about my meditation, and like my daily rituals were really super on point, and everything was really, really dialed in right back before COVID. And the dreams that I was having, I was telling my fiance and my best friend, like for about 5 straight weeks, I'm not even bullshitting you right now, this is not hyperbole or exaggeration, I was having apocalypse dreams. Zombie apocalypse, sickness like tearing through, making people insane, nuclear apocalypse. Like I had 4 or 5 different ones, and they were always like, oh, I woke up and I'm like, oh shit, I was like scavenging through somebody's house for guns in my dreams last night, or oh shit, like I was in this house and there was somebody else there and I had to kill them to stay alive. Like it was always really fucked up, like post-apocalyptic stuff. And so I actually quit paying attention for a little while, because it just got way intense when COVID hit. I was like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I started smoking a lot more pot. But I've been hearing the messages that it's time to listen again. So I did my last big dispensary hurrah today, and I'm gonna go back to being pot free for a while after this.
Yeah, I gave it a shot. I occasionally do. I'll take 2 weeks off, and pretty much the same thing. I'll start to have really intense dreams, but I feel like, and I don't smoke pot. I only eat the gummies. I haven't. This is just because that's more convenient for me, right? I don't want to smoke in my house. I rent, all that good stuff. But when I take the break, the dreams become very intense, and it's cool for a while. But I feel like marijuana is just too important a part of my spiritual practice. It's my everyday spiritual practice for me to really give it up. And maybe I will someday. I don't know, but right now I feel like it's an important part of my practice, and an important part of my mental health regimen. I am only about a year off of medication.
Oh, wow.
And about 7 years of getting off them one at a time. The last one I got off was Adderall, which I'd been on the longest, and I realized was causing the most problems, because it's just speed. It's all it is. It's just speed. It gives you migraines. It ramps up your lower chakras. It's bad. But it was helpful to me, and it was useful at the time. But I've replaced all of those medications with 1 or 2 pot gummies a day.
Hell, that's honestly, I mean, it's just a different medication. You're medicating a lot less. You're using things that are way better for your body. Your body has cannabinoid receptors, you know.
Yeah.
You're not like dumping all this weird chemical stuff in. And I feel like self-medication is a really, really valid and awesome way to deal with that. And honestly, that's part of what my pot use is as well, is kind of just a self-medication right now.
Yeah, and the idea of plant teachers is very valid. Marijuana, mushrooms, these things have incredible potential to teach you and to alter your consciousness and to expand your consciousness. I've never personally had the opportunity to try ayahuasca, but it's definitely on my to-do list. Go out to the jungle and have that experience. There's a lot that we have a symbiotic relationship with the plants on our planet. Absolutely. We definitely do. And exploring that relationship to me is an important part of my spiritual practice.
Oh yeah, I agree with that entirely. And I feel like, I feel like if you eat a mushroom, you feel that connection. It's a really intense, like, wake up call that you feel the connection to everybody. I think, I feel it when I eat mushrooms. It's very intensified how connected we all are.
Well, yeah, it breaks down the barriers of separation, and you don't experience them for a period of time. And you can experience this through meditation for those of you out there listening who don't want to ingest any sort of plant or chemical or whatever. You can experience all of this through meditation. But the breaking down of the barriers, the epistemological barriers that separate you from everything else, is an incredible experience.
Well, and that's at the core, that's the ego. That is what our ego is that differentiation that we have from one another, that we say, this is who I am, this is myself,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the things that we can do that get us past that. And honestly, that state that you get into through that state is like a flow state, really. It's the same state that we get into through medication or meditation, ethnogenic, psychedelics, whatever, chanting, singing, exercise gets you there, sex. There's all kinds of things that get us to that point. And honestly, I feel all of those things have a physical component that is it's your vagal nerve. It's vagus nerve stimulation. That gets you into that high, like runner's high sort of state. I think runner's high is a real good way to describe it, because lots of people can identify with that if they run. But yeah, it's a heightened state. And there's tons of things that we do to get us there. Playing music is a real good one.
Mm-hmm.
Art. It's all witchcraft, man. It's all magic.
It is. It's all changing your states of consciousness. And when you get out of the normal ego consciousness, everything is different for a period of time. Everything seems, and even when I'm creating a sigil, I get so lost in the lines and what I'm drawing and the creation of the sigil that I'm generating the trance state that's really making the sigil work. Yeah. It's not in the image. It's in the state of consciousness that creating the image causes in the creator.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like when you get yourself to that point too, like for me anyway, I can't speak for you, but for me, when I get myself to that point and I'm working on a sigil, I can feel when it's going to be a really good one and when it's just, I'm struggling with it. Right. Yeah. And the difference is that flow state. Like like you said, when I really get into it, it just starts coming out of me and I'm like, oh, this is a great one. And then there's the other ones where I'm like, oh, this sucks. I see letters. I see all this, I see the thing that I was trying to like emphasize, but not really draw. And yeah.
Yeah. The sigils definitely work best when you end up with an image that you're in love with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. 100%. When you love that image, when you love the image so much, and this is part of the incredible trick that sigil magic plays on your brain. When you love that image so much, the final image, you kind of forget why you made it. Right? You forget your statement of intention that you created the magic for, that you created the sigil for, and you're just in love with this image, and then that has played the trick on your brain, and now you've burned that intention into your subconscious mind, set it there, left alone, forgot about it, and you're left with this image. Now your thinking mind is just like, man, that looks cool. Whereas your subconscious mind knows exactly what it means, what the program is for. And that's what I consider a sigil to be, is a program that you've written for your subconscious mind. Your normal state of consciousness, let's say ego consciousness. This is a concept I came up with just this morning. So I'm not trying to say I'm no scientist, people.
Cool.
But it seems to me that ego consciousness has a relation to binary computing, whereas your subconscious mind is quantum. Binary is ones and zeros, separation of this and that, whereas quantum is everything all at once. It can, a quantum bit, a qubit could be a 1 and a 0 at the same time, which is sort of a state of unity and a much more powerful state of computing, whereas your normal thinking mind separates everything, ones and zeros.
Yeah.
So you're getting yourself out of that binary computing state of being and into the quantum state of being, and that's where you can affect real change on your inner self, on your aura, and and in so doing change the outer world.
Well, yeah, and I think our consciousness really runs on imagery, and so the a symbol of an idea instead of like the words of the idea, the symbols will get through that binary layer. I think that's a good way to punch through that layer. Because we're giving it the input that it wants, and you can pack a lot into those ideas, and if you can get yourself into that heightened emotional state, whatever that state is, when you're launching one of those things, I mean, I feel like that's why they're so powerful.
Yeah.
And you're also eliminating at the same time, like you're drawing a sigil for something that you want, but you're eliminating the lust for result. The possibility of lusting for the result because of forgetting about it, or because of destroying it when you're done, or however it is that you activate them. Mm-hmm. Personally, you're just taking that attachment away and giving yourself the ability to really manifest it.
Yeah, because just like you said, you let go of your expectations and your insistence on a particular outcome. You put that emotional energy into the creation of the sigil and you expend it that way, and then you're done with it. And what I do is I pin mine up on the wall all next to each other, so that there's no way I'm going to remember which one is for which. Mm-hmm. Because when you do that, you don't really, right? Like if you make a sigil that says I want a Lamborghini, not that that's a terrible sigil. I'm not recommending anybody, but so here's a real one that I would use and that I recommend to people. Create a sigil based on this phrase: I'm always in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, word.
Not I want a Lamborghini, but I'm always in the right place at the right time, right? And then instead of having that expectation, you create the sigil, you put it on your wall, you forget about it, and then you allow yourself to experience it.
Yeah, I feel like having a collection of sigils like that is a real good idea. Do you read Gordon White at all? Have you read any of his stuff?
I haven't, no.
No, he talks about some really good, really good techniques to use in sigilling, and one of them is that, like, sort of collecting a number of different sigils that you want to use all the time. And he talks about he calls it a shoal, where you're just grouping a bunch of sigils together and launching them at the same time, because you're using the same type of energy. For 1 or for 20, right? Mm-hmm. And he also talks about robo-fish. He calls it robo-fishing, which I think is a really cool concept. And he says that what you want to do when you have a shoal, like a couple of sigils that you want, that are related to your job or whatever, mundane bullshit you're writing sigils about, you take one, you write one sigil that is just something that for sure is absolutely going to come true. Like, I am going to eat steak for dinner tonight, and you make it a sigil and you launch it with the rest of them. And that sigil, because it is like on the path to being absolutely true, it pulls all the other sigils in that same, like, sort of probability direction.
Very cool. I like that. That's a cool trick. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, he's got a lot of really good ones like that. You should check him out. He does a podcast called Rune Soup, and I really like his work.
Yeah, I will. I'll check out his podcast and his books. I have a problem with ordering esoteric books on Amazon. I have so many. I have such an amazing book collection. I love it. But there's always more, right? There's always more great esoteric books to find.
Yeah.
No, there are hundreds of them out there, thousands, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, super true. And there's more every day, man, and it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think it's great. I think that what's happening right now is, what we could call the Great Awakening, the shift. Everyone has a different name for it, right? But it's this convergence of science and spirituality. Science is catching up to spirituality, and spirituality is beginning to express itself through science. And we're starting to see like, oh, these things are very intimately connected. And then the realization is that everything is intimately connected and there's no such thing as separation at all.
Well, yeah, agreed. Yeah, and that's going to cause, I mean, that's causing huge cultural shifts and changes, and it looks like chaos if you're looking at it real close up, but I bet if you zoom out 10 or 15 or 20 years, it's going to be like, this is the time when everything is coming together and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. I mean, it's been foretold that we're all going to be more humanitarian, and we're having this great universal consciousness shift right now. So it shouldn't be a big surprise that there's going to be a little bit of rocky.
Well, one of the things that I'm most fascinated by, and it's something we're just kind of like watching happen, is that Edgar Case's prediction of pole shift is literally physically happening.
Yeah,
the poles are flipping, and we have no. I mean, you could listen. You could go listen to a channel like Universe Inside You, which I love and support. It's a great channel, or Gaia, or any of these kind of new age channels, and they'll all tell you like the poles are flipping. It's going to happen any minute. Where you could go listen to, you can go watch the Discovery Channel, and they'll tell you the poles are flipping, and it's going to take 10,000 years. We really don't know which one it is. It could be either. We're going to wait and see because it hasn't happened in thousands of years. But it is happening. That's what's undeniable. And coinciding with this pole shift happens to be a lot of mass hysteria all over the world. And that it was prophesized in the Emerald Tablets and by Edgar Cayce and all these other old works to talk about consciousness shifts. And so we're experiencing a consciousness shift. The poles are flipping, and like you said, we're entering the age of Aquarius. The Mayan calendar ended in 2012, and all this stuff, it's like it's all happening together simultaneously. It's really interesting.
Well, and I think like what you said too about cultural, like you said something that reminded me of like Alexandria, where there are just all of these like cultural and scientific ideas coming together at once, and spirituality and all of these clashes. And if you think about the internet, I mean, it kind of is like an Alexandria on a global scale. Like we're all able to clash, together now. We're all able to come together and share our weird spiritual practices and our ideas and all of these things. And so I mean that's bound to cause some sort of an evolution, I think. It caused a huge evolution in magic back in the day in Alexandria. So imagine what it's going to cause when there's so much more accessibility. Like the occult is not really occulted anymore.
No. It's really not. It's becoming mainstream.
Yeah,
it's becoming mainstream. And this is, again, you could just flip the language and call it the science of consciousness. You could listen to Deepak Chopra talk all day, and he's not all that particularly mystical in the way that he speaks. Or you could listen to people who speak entirely in languages of symbolism, and that's what esotericism is. It's all different languages of symbolism, because you need a language of symbolism to describe something that's not physical. How could you describe it without a particular language of symbolism, right? So we've got all these different languages of symbolism, and we're finding out that all the different religions are all really saying kind of the same thing, for one thing, and so it's not about the fight between religions about this religion's right and this one's wrong. It's your personal connection to the other side, and to acknowledge that other side, that metaphysical realm, the quantum realm, the spirit realm, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. When people smoke DMT and they go meet the DMT aliens, they're having an experience in the metaphysical realm.
Yeah,
because it's a real thing in a real place. We are multidimensional. There are multiple dimensions of consciousness. You have an entire inner world that no one else is privy to aside from you. and working with that inner world, that's working in the metaphysical plane or the astral plane or the mental plane. I keep this big list of things that are the same thing because there's all these different words for one underlying truth.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. And and there's so many, if you do a little bit of comparative religion study, I mean, there's so many different religions that have the same types of myths and legends, and there's same incidents and crossovers. I mean, and even the same, like the love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, that's across all religions, and every country basically has some sort of a version of that. And I feel like when we start to look at those things and to pay attention to those things that overlap all other boundaries, like that's where real transformation on a planet-wide scale is going to come from, is just treating people like that, and getting those correspondences, and understanding that we're all the same.
That we're all one, and that when you mistreat someone, you're mistreating yourself. When you love someone, you're loving yourself. We are one unified consciousness that's divided by Maya into the illusion of separation. Mm-hmm. And there's a purpose to that. And this is something I'm I could go on about for days, but you see all these, spiritual teachers talking about, transcending the ego or transcending the material. And it's like, no, these are parts of you. You have a body and you have an ego and they have purposes. It's not about ignoring them. It's about mastering them and integrating them with your higher self and your spiritual self, and the emotional body, the physical body, the light body. They're all important. It's not that the physical world is bad and evil, or that the ego is bad and evil. It's that we misuse them.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that entirely. We not only misuse them, but I think that we get to a point where we just don't even realize that it's a thing anymore. Like we don't recognize them, and then they run our lives, and that's what makes people hectic and hectic and makes things really, really challenging. Is when we are so disassociated that we can't recognize the effects of our own ego anymore.
Yeah, because you don't realize that there's anything else but your ego. Your ego becomes so dominant in your mind that it's the only voice. And then there's no other voices saying like, hey, maybe that's not a good idea. Or you drown those voices out to the point where you're just stuck in your ego. And that's definitely a bad thing. That's not going to lead to any, in my opinion, any form of real true fulfillment or happiness. Because like I have stated, mind, body, spirit are a 3-part system. You need to focus on all three. All three they're 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 of like what and who you are. There's more to it than just those 3 things, but those 3 are in your face and they're very important, just like your big 3 astrological signs, and I know this isn't the standard theory of astrology, but this is from my personal observations and my research. I would say that your sun sign is your higher mind, not your ego. I would say your rising sign is your ego. So in traditional astrology, they would say your sun sign is your ego and your rising sign is how you look and dress and present yourself to the world. I don't know about that. I would say your rising sign is your ego, because that's what you look and dress and present yourself to the world, right? And your sun sign is your higher mind. And that could be why most people who think astrology is bullshit don't really relate to their sun sign. They don't even know their rising sign. But you're going to relate far more to your rising sign if you're in ego consciousness. Whereas if you travel between the realms of consciousness, you could realize like, yeah, I'm definitely a Leo sun, but my ego is Scorpio as hell, man.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's really insightful. I don't think I've ever thought about it that way before, but I think you're probably right. I mean, it feels about right to me.
Yeah, it feels about right to me as well. And I've seen this. I observe my friends very closely. And I observed in my friends that when we were younger, they all would embody more of their rising sign. And as we're approaching 40 and we're all on this spiritual journey together, we're all embodying our sun sign a lot more.
Huh. Yeah, I'll have to, well, like I said, I'm still doing a lot of astrology study right now. So I'll have to see if there's anything more to that in any of the books that I'm pouring.
Yeah, let me know if you come across anything. I have a lot of weird ideas about astrology and I'm still learning. I'm pretty familiar with the signs, with the houses, with the signs, houses, and all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank to the third really big important thing. The planets. There you go. The signs, the houses, and the planets. Of course, there's more to it than there's aspects, and aspects are what I'm studying now. Like I've got a grip on the signs, the houses, and the planets, and the big three, and how they can really help a person understand themselves. But of course, there's always more. There's always more with astrology.
Conjunct and trine and sextile and this and that and oppositions, and there's so much. And I feel like there's always more. And then the medical stuff, I mean, that just is a whole other thing. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that works. But all of each house is related to each astrological sign is related to a specific set of body parts, basically. So understanding like the trines and the sextiles and the oppositions and all that is real important. And I know that like your sixth house represents like your health and your fitness and your well-being in general, and so that one's a real important one. And
knowing where your different signs, what houses they fall in, is a huge part of knowing yourself, right? Like my sun is in the 9th house, and as it so happens, I'm very interested in philosophy. Who would have guessed it, right? People who have their sun in the 2nd house, everyone always wants their sun to be in the 2nd house, because that means you're really gonna shine when it comes to making money, because your 2nd house is your finances. But these things really are a map of who you are. And I'll tell you what I think, okay? And I'm not going to tell anybody what to believe. I'm only here to tell you what I believe. But I believe that you plan out your life before you're born, and that you come here with a plan, and that plan is very much laid out in your astrology. It's the map you made for yourself to remind yourself of what it is that you're here to do. It's in your astrology, it's in your numerology. And you can use these tools as maps through life.
Yeah, I think that's it's like footnotes. Like you're leaving yourself clues, and you've got to dig through the astrology to find them. Yeah, I really like that.
And not only that, but this is like, life is designed to be this grand adventure. And first you've got to become aware of numerology and astrology and these kinds of things. Then you've got to get interested in it. Then you're like, whoa, I'm in there. You're discovering yourself. But first you have to discover that there even is a map, and there's no guarantee you're going to figure that out in any given lifetime.
Yeah, not in this lifetime necessarily. Yeah.
No, I mean, plenty of people die staunch atheists, and I feel bad for them, because I think that would be terrifying. Personally, I'm not here to judge anybody. It would be terrifying to me to not believe in anything, or to not feel the connection that I feel to the metaphysical realm and to my spirit guides, and to know that, from my own personal truth, to know that it's there. But it's really interesting the way that it's all laid out, and like you can find these clues, and they're like little breadcrumbs, as you say, to your destiny, maybe. If you look on my Instagram page, I have a chart that I created that kind of shows, as you move up in awareness and connection to the universe by discerning these patterns, you move away from fate and towards destiny. Fate being the most deterministic possible timeline, destiny being the highest vibrational possible timeline for you. But it's not that they're predetermined. You have a fate and a destiny, and it's about which one you move towards.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, for me, that's kind of when I found my spirituality. I've had a couple of spiritual awakenings over the course of my life now, and one of them, I've had some really crazy stuff, and I feel like that's really helped me to build a connection, and that all of those things brought me to the place that I'm at today. Like I can look back and go, oh, this terrible thing happened in my childhood, and it was really screwed up, and wow, woe is me, and I'll never get over this pain. Or I can like see that thing that I lived through like made me stronger, and I'm moving forward, and like I have this experience where I can relate to somebody maybe that I run into that has that same experience, and that thing like maybe triggered something like butterfly effect, like I'm doing good because of all of the crazy crap that I've lived through.
Exactly. Yeah.
All of the things that I have in the past, like been really upset about, or that I have grieved about, or that I have beaten myself up over, are all things that were training to get me to be the person that I am now. And I feel like right now, most of the time, I'm pretty in line with my true will, and my higher self is, giving me really, really good information and downloads, and I'm listening to my intuition, and everything's working out great. So all of that pain is for a purpose. And sometimes, it sucks. And all of the things that happened in the past, to us that are traumatic are super traumatic and difficult, and everybody feels that differently. But at some point, like, we also have to heal that trauma and work on being awesome daily.
Yeah. Well, I think about, I'm just going off now. I'm just letting my mind wander, but I think
Ooh, do it.
it could be that one of the reasons this sort of mass awakening is happening is that we have now all lived enough lifetimes that it's, maybe after 2,000, 3,000, however, 10,000 lifetimes, that's just when you start to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so this is what I was saying, was that, maybe a person comes to the earth realm with a plan to have a really horrible, tragic life as a way of learning empathy. Because
Totally.
if you haven't suffered, you don't know the experience of suffering. It can be incredibly beneficial to you.
Absolutely
You
agreed.
can develop empathy that way.
I have heard people, take this and turn it around and be like, oh, you're victim blaming. You're saying that I came into this, and I deserve everything I get. But I think that that's just another perspective of looking at things. And we really have to look at it as, this is something that I have taken upon myself to learn as a thing that will change, my soul.
Yeah. Well, listen, this is just how I think about it. If you're a victim of something terrible or some personal terrible thing, it could be an objective fact that you're a victim. Does it do you any good to think of yourself that way?
Well, no, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
That is putting yourself into a cage and never letting yourself out, because that, unless you can change that mentality,
Yeah. And so, spiritual people get the finger pointed at them all the time, saying, oh, you're victim blaming. It's like, no, we're trying, a lot of us are victims, and we're trying to transcend that mentality by saying that there's, by believing and by experiencing and by knowing and observing for yourself through awareness that there is purpose to everything that happens in your life. For example, my father died when I was 12 years old. You think I'm over it? I'm 37. I'm not over it. It still hurts every single day, but it did trigger my sort of, my spiritual path started with atheistic LaVeyan Satanism, but it still put me on the path. And I'm not knocking Satanism. There are some things in the Satanic Bible that I still really agree with, and some things I really disagree with now that I've evolved. I'm a chaos magician. That's what I call myself. But I follow the teachings of Thoth pretty carefully. But I also read a lot of Hindu scripture, and I never lock myself into a box. I think that there's wisdom in every wisdom culture. Every system of ancient wisdom teachings has something to offer us that's worthwhile.
I agree, absolutely. And every mystery school has a unique take that a lot of times there's lots of overlap. One of the things too about locking yourself into that box, I see people do that a lot physically as well. Like if you have an injury, say you got in a car accident, 10 years ago, like I'll still hear people that will come to me and be like, oh yeah, I got in a car accident 10 years ago. And I still feel pain once in a while. And, you say, well, do you have any hardware? Did anything break? Like, did you have a change? And a lot of times, man, that pain that they're feeling is due to something that they're holding on, like the memory of that car accident. Yeah. So they move a little differently, or they still have a programmed response to the pain that they were in from that car accident. And so they'll just say, no, I'm injured. And it's like, well, are you really injured anymore? Like structurally, there's nothing wrong anymore.
Or are you just holding the vibration of that injury in your body?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so once you can take yourself out of that perspective where you're like, oh, I'm injured or I'm sick or I'm, disabled or I'm whatever the situation is, I'm mentally ill,
Yeah,
once
that's
you
a big one. Yeah.
yeah,
Because if you're
totally.
told you're mentally ill, and it's like, well, fuck. What
But
am I gonna do about it?
here's the deal. Like we're mentally ill, but health is a spectrum, right? Physical health is a spectrum too. Like maybe I'm mentally ill, but I'm physically ill right there at the same point, and I'm just not aware of it. So illness is always a spectrum. Like we always move ourselves more towards health, and that's just a matter of your perspective. Like especially with mental health, it's just a matter of our perspective. It really, I mean, it sucks to say that when you're in the depths of your shit and everything is terrible and I'm miserable and blah, 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 blah. Somebody going, oh, it's just your perspective. You're going to want to
Oh,
punch.
it drives you insane. I just did that to my best friend last night, and he's a lifelong Buddhist. But we all have our times when we just feel like crap, man.
Yeah.
And I find that you've got to gauge who you're talking to and where they're at. Some people who are spiritually aware and have been on this path for a long time can handle hearing, come on, man, change your perspective. Come on.
Yeah.
Snap out of it. You know better. Other people, that's just being rude. Legitimately, no matter how well intentioned you are, if they're not in the right place to hear that message, if it's not helpful to them, then you're not being helpful.
Yeah. No, totally.
And help get them there.
And honestly, sometimes it's just a small matter of like of a shift, like going from I can't handle this to this is really hard right now. I know I'll get through it. Like it's just a little tiny, like it's literally the words that we repeat to ourselves. Auto hypnosis. Like we tell ourselves, I can't do this thing. I can't handle this stress. I can't deal with my job. I can't deal with my my husband.
If you're telling yourself I can't, that's right, you can't.
Yeah.
You won't be able to.
Auto hypnosis, it really is.
That subconscious part of you has, your conscious mind does not stand a chance against your subconscious mind. I mean, it's a cricket fighting Mike Tyson. It's not gonna work out. You got to change your subconscious beliefs if you want to affect real change in your world. And so the example that I love to give is, which of these two beliefs are you going to choose? That you have a chemical imbalance and so you're screwed up in the head and you need to take a bunch of pills, or that your chemical imbalance is caused by the way you think and it's correctable by changing the way that you use your own mind.
Well, yeah, I agree. Well, the way you think changes the way that you live, the time you get to bed every night, the things that you put into your body, drugs, alcohol, food.
Your breathing. Your breathing has more of an effect on your chemistry than anything.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely affects everything. The way that we think is super important. And I think that we just don't put a lot of thought into changing the way that we think as a society either.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I'd say people are constantly, and this is from my point of view, this is what I see being the big picture of what's kind of the biggest thing that's wrong with the world, is that everybody is so focused on what everyone else is doing and not focused inward, right? Like turn that magnifying glass the other way around, because you want to change society, change yourself.
Yeah.
That's the greatest effect you could ever have on society, because you're a unit of society. Change yourself.
Yeah.
Don't go trying to tell everyone else what they need to do. Lead by example. Create that interchange, and that interchange will radiate out. And if it's truly positive, then everyone around you will be like, yo, what are you doing differently? Can I get some of that?
Super true. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I mean, that's the basis of all sort of manifestation, is just changing the things in myself and even visualization. There's a lot of different things that like I'm a very visual person, and so when I'm down on myself, like I'll actually have movies in my head of things that could possibly go wrong.
Oh man, me too. Yeah.
And so getting myself out of that and realizing that I'm actively visualizing things that I don't want, and stopping that visualization and like just trying to change it to something nice. Like I'll visualize myself laying in bed and being super comfortable and like loving my pillow. I'm just comfortable and I'm in bed and everything is great. And just getting yourself to be able to take yourself out of like the horrible visualization into something that's really stupid, maybe, like that, but still comforting and grounding is super effective for me.
Yes.
And it's part of my deep breathing. I'll just pull myself out of a situation and I'll put myself, at my altar in my in my space, or I'll pull myself out of whatever, I'm in traffic and I'm pissed off. So I'm going to think about being on the beach and I can hear the sound of the waves. And yeah, I feel like we have so many tools at our disposal that we could completely change everything about ourselves. And we just get distracted by technology and chaos and all of the weirdness in the world.
and your belief systems, right? Like if you have the knowledge and the belief that you can change your internal state to change how you feel, then you'll do that. But if you've never heard this before, or if you're locked in that state of consciousness where you really believe that the outside world has to change before you'll change, it's going to be a long time. You're going to be waiting a very long time. You're going to be pissed off for a very long time because the outside world doesn't change like that. And it's not going to affect real inner changes within you. I mean, that can happen, but you can go in and make that change right away. You can do it for yourself and then watch the outside world change rather than waiting for the outside world to change for you to be happy.
Yeah. And a lot of people say things like, oh, that's just how I am. And they just accept it, and they don't realize that they've got the power to be however they want.
Yeah, you can say I am and then say whatever you want at that point. It's not objective truth. It's what do you make of yourself? What have you decided to be? What kind of person? One of my favorite like spiritual, wrong place for quotes, but spiritual memes that you see on the internet is envision the person you want to be and then just start showing up as that person. That's it. That's the trick right there. Envision the person you want to be and then take steps to be that person without any of the I can't or it's too hard. Just take the first step and see what happens, and then maybe take the second step and see what happens, and watch your life change in that way instead of acting like it's got some outside force has to act upon you for you to get you to do these things.
Yeah. I one of my favorite quotes is what the hell's the guy's name? I totally lost the name. Kurt Vonnegut. And he says, we are what we pretend to be. So we have to be very careful about what we pretend to be.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It works in both ways. Like we can pretend to be anything we want, but we have to be prepared to be that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say, from my point of view, I'm just paraphrasing, it's the same thing, but I mean, you are your beliefs. So choose positive beliefs. Choose beliefs that work for you, not beliefs that work against you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are the things that we do every day too. Yep. If I am saying, I want to have a super, organized house, and then I'm spending all my time like out, hiking and stuff, like I'm never going to get home and organize my house. So, like we are the things that we do on a daily basis, and our habits are actually what make us what we are. So I have to be careful that I just have healthy habits. Like I can't just start a diet, or I can't just start an exercise program. Like I have to just make it a part of my life all the time.
Yeah, same here. I've definitely got to make like lifestyle changes are far more effective than temporary. I'll do this for this amount of time or whatever. Doing keto, for example, I've been doing it for a few months now, and I feel so good.
Oh, hell yeah.
I've been eating junk and just, not doing very well with my diet. And then these last few months I've been working out and doing keto, and I feel fantastic. I think, and I'm just going to speak for myself here. I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but there is, to my ego, an incredible drive towards self-destruction that is not there within my higher mind, but my ego is dark and self-destructive for sure. And I I've spent a lot of time experimenting with how many different ways I can destroy myself. Or how many different ways I can mess myself up and then dig myself out of the hole I dug for myself. And I'm just not interested in doing it anymore. I'm interested in sustained joy and in a sustained higher state of consciousness and in celebrating the success of others, and in being spiritually in tune instead of so in tune with my ego consciousness. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with ego. Ego is something to master, not something to run away from. Just like your shadow. Your shadow is something to integrate, not something to run away from. But these real self-destructive habits, in me, that's where they live. And it feels good to have at least somewhat transcended those habits. It feels amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Congratulations, man. Very similar kind of energy on my part. Like I've always just been kind of like, I was a goth kid, growing up and like a metalhead kid, and always just like wearing concert shirts and getting all kinds of disapproving looks from little old ladies. And, I feel like I spent the majority of my life in a really just dark, depressive, like angry state.
Yep.
And I blamed the world for being fucked up, and I blamed my parents for bringing me into a world that I didn't like, and I blamed everybody else but myself. And once it took a couple of spiritual awakenings,
Mm-hmm.
but once that lesson was finally learned, that I am ultimately responsible for everything I do, say, think, feel, and that, everything that I do radiates out into the world, it definitely made it an easier way to just change my mindset around that darkness, and change my mindset around, being positive on a daily basis instead of like everything being terrible all the time. I tried to really find the things that were joyful, that, I was appreciative for. And that gratefulness practice is huge, man. Like
it's huge.
That is that energy that I feel like we need to really manifest that grateful energy. And once I can feel grateful for something, I get more of it, it's just how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. That is how it works. And that's a key component to magic is gratitude. Because when you're in a state of gratitude, the universe is just responding to it, giving you more things to feel grateful about. Well, Mike, we're coming up on 2 hours here, man.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation. We're going to have to do it again.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. That was a really a fun time. I'm sorry I veered off course a couple of times, but
no, me too, man. Yeah, thank you.